One of my favorite clients is a little boy named Clint, whom I met when he was 8 years old. Clint's mother and father had tried for many years to have a baby, and they were never able to. She had what was called an incompetent cervix, so that whenever she would get pregnant, the cervix couldn't keep the baby in her uterus. And after a number of attempts, a high-risk specialist actually sewed the cervix closed when she became pregnant again in a surgical procedure called a cerclage, so that she could keep the baby in her uterus and allow it to grow to term. When she went to the doctor's office to have the cerclage surgically removed, the doctor said to her, "You're ready to deliver any time, and I want you to know I might not be here when you deliver. I have to go out of the country for a conference." There was a complicating factor. Not only did she have a cervix which was incompetent, she had something called osteogenesis imperfecta, commonly known as brittle bone disease. Genetically, there was a 1 in 4 chance the baby would have her disease. And before she delivered, the obstetrician said to the husband, "Your job when you get into the delivery room is to remind the doctor who's covering, if I'm not there, that your wife is the patient with OI, osteogenesis imperfecta." When she went into labor, the husband performed his job perfectly. He said, "Doc, don't forget, my wife has OI." And the covering obstetrician looked at him and said, "Your wife will be fine." And that really was the telltale testimony, because he totally failed to appreciate the genetic possibility that this baby would have the same disease. As the delivery didn't progress well, he looked at the nurse and asked, "May I have a vacuum extractor?" which he placed on the baby's head and proceeded to pull the baby out. And unfortunately, this baby, Clint, had osteogenesis imperfecta, and he had a serious fracture of the skull from the vacuum extraction pulling against his head to deliver him. There was bleeding in his brain, and he suffered a permanent cerebral palsy injury as a result of that, on top of his own brittle bone disease. When I came into this picture, Clint was already 8 years old. His parents never realized that his condition was the result of a birth trauma. I recall very clearly going to Clint's house the first time I met him. His parents had lost their home paying medical bills for their son. They were living in a mobile home, a trailer home, owned by Clint's grandfather, which he allowed them to use. The trailer home had a doorway and halls that were too narrow for him to get around in his chair, so that when he'd get home, his parents would have to lift him down from the chair to the floor, where he would crawl around on the floor, and that's how he got around in his own home. We handled the case. Wayne and I each deposed different doctors involved in the case, and when we tried the case, we were able to settle the case while we were selecting a jury, and the recovery created a great fund to provide for Clint's needs. The Special Needs Trust acquired for him a home that was specially adapted to his needs. So he now has a home with extra wide halls, and there's a therapy room with a therapy pool and a hoist, so that as he grew and became an adult, his parents would be able to help him get in and out of the pool. And his mother was able to stop working out of the home and was specially trained as an aide. And she now is paid by the trust to work just with her son. I'm really proud to tell you that I get regular cards, videos, and calls from Clint's family. He can now walk independently almost 500 feet. Just 2 weeks ago, I know he got a service dog to help him get around. So that's one of my favorite clients.